Welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you are a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sacosio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Childcare Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's Erica here with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Super excited you are here today and you are in for a good show. But then again, all the shows are good. So I want to say this to you guys. In a world where everything seems to be moving faster every day, technology is advancing rapidly, and the demands on childcare leaders, well, those continue to grow. So I have one question. How do we stay human? As childcare directors, we aren't just managing programs. We're building relationships. We're supporting educators. We're partnering with families. And of course, creating environments where children feel seen, valued, and loved, and of course, understood. Today's guest believes that the greatest leadership advantage isn't technology, policy, or even experience. It's our human skills. Joining us today is speaker, trainer, and leadership expert, Chris, I'm probably not going to say this right, Danilo.
Danilo, but you know what? There's a whole thing about you're technically correct and I'm technically wrong. But we say Danilo these days.
Danilo?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Danilo, whose work focuses on helping educators and leaders develop human skills that no technology can replace. You know, like emotional intelligence, curiosity, resilience, self-management, empathy, adaptability. Whoo, do we need that right now? And meaningful connection. Through his work with early childhood professionals, Chris helps leaders strengthen their culture, improve communication, and build teams that thrive. So welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast, Chris.
What an intro. Do I even need to talk now? I feel like you did it. You did it.
Well,
nice.
You got to do a little work. So,
good.
Chris,
Perfect.
I know that you have spent a great deal of time talking about human skills in a profession that's centered around relationships. Why do you believe that those skills are more important now than ever?
Oh my gosh. In an AI-powered world, the things that we do that will be most valuable will be most human. Because if you look at the amount of money, energy, time being spent raising money or powering AI systems, most of the conversation right now in the AI universe is like, hey, how do we decrease costs? How do we increase efficiency? All the same kind of things that we see from the Industrial Revolution. But there's a few people who believe that there are things that AI will do really, really well by itself. There are things that humans will do really, really well by themselves. And then a third category of things that we can do together that we couldn't have done by ourselves. And so I am of the belief that the things that we do as human beings that will be most valuable will be the things that an algorithm is going to have a really hard time replicating or, creating like an analog for. So those things that you just mentioned about relationships and building trust, you and I build relationship together, build that trust, and then we get to hang out and build stuff together and make things that are amazing and useful and powerful for the early childhood workforce. The only way we get to do that is by building trust. So that's just one example of a human skill that I think is crazy valuable. So yeah, what a weird new world we live in.
Yeah, especially when you're over, 50 and you're like, what the heck? The other thing I think with the AI world, this isn't to bash AI world. I think
Sure.
a place for it, but I think we almost seen it with cars. Now, just stay with me for a minute. I feel like all cars start to look the same. And I can remember when I was growing up, like a Mustang looked like a Mustang. And, a Chevelle looked like a Chevelle. They were very distinct, very, designed. I feel like every car now looks like a Toyota Camry. They just like body styles are very similar. The colors very similar. So I think when you start to generalize so much information, I feel like things are going to already start to sound the same. I can, and you probably can too. If I listen to something or I watch something on YouTube, I can tell immediately whether it's generated by AI or not. You absolutely know instinctively, almost instantly.
Yeah.
Even though it's great and it's polished, and you can tell it's not human.
Yeah.
We haven't quite gotten there yet. I think it might be scary when we do, but we haven't really quite gotten there yet. I mean, again 55. If I can tell it's AI, I mean, we're definitely not in a place where it's exactly the same, but it becomes generic. I think that there are some things that, again, only humans can do. I don't care what Judy Jetson says, and Rosie, we're not children anytime soon.
That's a good line to take then. Well, I feel like,
I think it's true. So let's talk about being human first. Like childcare directors often feel like this pressure that they have to have all the answers. So how can leaders embrace being human and showing that being authentic or being vulnerable, having empathy while still leading effectively?
Yeah. You know what's funny about this? There's so much pressure. And I think a lot of the pressure to be right or to have the answer comes from our own ego. So this is like one of those weird things where we think it's from the pressure from other people, but actually it's our own ego that's driving the need to be right. And what we find is like, actually, people don't need leaders to be right all the time. They don't want you to have to know I mean, it's great to have answers. It's great to have solutions. But most people on most teams want a relationship where they are able to trust each other. And they know that if something gets hard, that we are going to pitch in and work together and find a solution collaboratively. And that is way more important than having all the answers to the problems. And I think if we can zoom out for 2 seconds as leaders and say, wait a second, like my people actually want guidance. They want coaching. They want thought partnership. They want to collaborate with me. Like if we can acknowledge that, then it's going to be a little bit easier to look inside and be like, oh, maybe that is a little bit more ego driven than I thought. And it becomes a little bit easier to let go of that need to be right or the need to just have an answer or a solution. I can tell you a million examples of like times where I have been in a situation and I have to look at my team and be like, hey, I don't know what we're going to do, but I can tell you what we are going to do, which is we're going to huddle and we're going to figure it out. And there's the 800 billion reasons why this team is perfect for figuring it out. And to me, that's way more powerful than coming in with an answer.
Absolutely. I think too, when you're comfortable with your leadership, you are very open and very quick to say, you know what, guys, that does sound like a problem. What do you guys think we should do?
Yeah.
I throw that ball right back. What do you got any suggestions?
Yeah.
Right. I think too, the more that people get used to working with good leaders, they'll come in and not only just tell you the problem, but they'll say, here's what I think we could do before you even ask the question. That's how you know that your team feels safe.
Perfect.
This is, we're really messing up in this classroom. This environment, we're missing XYZ. I know the funds are limited. We could probably make it work with these 2 things. And one of the things I found down in the basement that used to be in Susie's class that no one's using, right? It's creating that safe space for that conversation. Like it's great to be that leader who say, let's huddle. But then that next level is getting your people to where they come in and say, hey, this is a problem I've identified. There's some solutions. What do you guys think?
I love your instinct and language on this. Like the word safety specifically, because the way that this is explained in current like modern neuroscience research is as the term psychological safety, which sounds, and I'm sure some people already know what it is, and it sounds really fluffy. But all psychological safety means is how easy is it for my team to come and share ideas without feeling like they're going to be shot down, ridiculed, or like it's going to be wrong, or they're going to be embarrassed or something like that, right? Like the idea that we're all part of of the same team. And if an idea doesn't work, great. Who cares? That's not a reflection of you or your contribution.
Yeah.
That's just us trying stuff. And that idea didn't work. Great. Let's move on to the next one. And so if a team is feeling like they are able to share those kinds of, then you're not only going to have more ideas surfacing in your organization, but you're also going to have a team that's way more resilient because they're able to bounce back from those things without taking it personally or feeling like someone else is going to judge them and, have that kind of like tension internally that's quiet, which is the worst kind, the quiet kind.
Yeah. So let's talk about another, like you said, psychological safety, which is kind of like a buzzword right now. Let's talk about another one. Emotional intelligence and leadership. I've been in the field a long time. We were doing it, but we weren't identifying it and saying, I really need to work on my emotional intelligence skills, right? So good job for us for being self-aware that we need to have it because nobody was talking about this 15 years ago, I will tell you right now.
Right.
But you speak about emotional intelligence and self-management. How can childcare leaders better regulate their own emotions during stressful situations so they can show up as their best self?
Yeah, it's so hard because the early childhood workforce is in this really uncomfortable position where if you go, looking online for how do I manage this? How do I manage that? How do I regulate this? How do I regulate that? There's so much information on taking breaks and, rejuvenating and like self-care is another like common buzzword. And there's so much stuff that like kind of doesn't apply for early childhood educators because a lot of the work is sort of educators being in a position where they can't take a break. The demands are flooding in. And someone's saying, have you thought about taking a break? And then meanwhile, they have a classroom full of 4-year-olds. And you're like, yeah, right. Like that's not practical. It's not realistic. And so a lot of the advice doesn't apply for early childhood educators. I will also say that there's a bit of there's some language confusion around emotional intelligence, and I love the language of emotion regulation. That's been really clear, like in the literature and like in neuroscience and like how we talk about it. But emotional intelligence as a term, it's like been around since probably the 60s. And then a guy named Daniel Goleman wrote a book about emotional intelligence. And then everyone started talking about it. And at that point, it was like in business schools and they were hiring Daniel Goleman's team to like come out and train them how to be more emotionally intelligent. And one of the things that I just like have to clarify about it is that there's all this research on different parts of what we would consider emotional intelligence. Like you mentioned, awareness, self-awareness, or emotion regulation, like stuff that we know is part of the literature and is pretty solid. And then there's the way that like a lot of the business community defines emotional intelligence, which is like the way, if you just look at Daniel Goleman's book, it's basically like, hey, there's this category of IQ, just intelligence, pattern matching, whatever. And then there's everything else. And like the category of everything else is somehow emotional intelligence, which of course, like if you're a scientist, like that should give you the creepy crawlies and like the weird knee-jerk reaction of skepticism, because anytime someone says it's this huge category, what that generally means is it's kind of poorly defined. And if it's poorly defined, that means we probably can't measure it. It probably doesn't have a lot of meaning. It means that it might not translate into actions that are clear. It may not be useful. So there's like a little bit of that like groundwork and like nitpicky explanation that I feel like I always have to do when talking about emotional intelligence, because not all of the let's just say information in like that's out there that you would bump into is going to be like useful, true, or just transferable for educators. One thing that I know of that is just like really, it's so small and it's going to sound so silly. And it may even sound useless, but I promise it's like one of the most useful tools you can use for managing emotions, And it's developed for a group of people who have a very stressful job, the Navy SEALs in the United States military. It's called box breathing. And there's a couple different variations of this. There's triangle breathing if you feel like box breathing is a little bit too difficult or whatever. But the idea is very science-based. The idea is if you breathe out for longer than you breathe in, your heart rate will go down. That is just the science of how it works. Your heart, your lungs, your brain are all connected by something called the vagus nerve. And when you breathe out for longer than you breathe in, your body is physiologically set up to start decreasing your heart rate. And when you do that, your brain allows your prefrontal cortex to come back online and be a little bit more aware, and then you get to start using your critical thinking brain, analytical thinking brain, logical brain, and start quieting some of that emotional brain, which we would call like the amygdala or the limbic system. So that's just like this tiny little example that feels like, oh my gosh, breathing slowly, like that's ridiculous. Like I can't. How could that possibly work? But it's just one of those tools that is just so physiologically defined and clear, and the science is so good on it and it's so small. Like you can do this in 20 seconds and have some kind of like physiological impact, which is just crazy. So it's a weird thing to say, like, hey, Chris, how do we manage our emotions better? I'll tell you right now, this is one that takes almost no time and has a really clear, strong physiological impact. So I would try it. If you don't believe me, go ahead.
Try breathing.
Try literally like
breathing. Yeah.
Yep. Or if you've ever had this experience, Erica, where you've got a bunch of things on your mind, you're maybe stressed, you're carrying it in your chest or in your back or something, and you do this thing where you just take just like one big, slow, deep breath out.
Mm-hmm.
Is huge. Even just that one breath, you will feel it in your physiology, and your brain's going to be a little bit different at the end of that breath. And it might just give you a little bit more of the edge that you need to be like, okay, I'm ready to go take on this thing. Or it allows you that space to then have a new idea or a new approach, or figure out how am I going to manage this tantrum or whatever it is. But it gives you that split second of mental clarity and refocus. So hopefully that's my long-winded way and caveated way of answering your question of how do we regulate.
I think it's great. So what I'm going to say is we very quickly hopped right in because I'm, Energizer Bunny. But I didn't just find you like hanging out in your office there. So tell folks a little bit about why you know so much about the brain.
Oh man. Yeah, sure. I'll try my best to give you the short version, but basically, my first love was philosophy, and I was just so interested in all of these smart people who figured out systems of thought and how to approach problems and how to think critically about things. And I was just so interested in how these systems of thought related to human behavior. Hey, there's a lot of humans out there. They're making weird decisions, dumb decisions, smart decisions. I got to know why. Like I was driven completely selfishly by I just need to understand human behavior and why people do smart things, dumb things, useful things, productive things, self-destructive things, etc. And the funny path is when you start getting into philosophy, you start realizing that you need to get into the sciences. And when you get into psychology and you want to keep going deeper, you realize that there's about 1 billion different branches of psychology. And then you're like, cool, I understand this, but I need something that's a little bit more concrete. I need something that's like really hard science. And that's, for me, the kind of path that I took into neuroscience. And at some point in studying neuroscience, I was at Penn State, and I realized I think that the most useful thing I can do for this planet is to understand how brains start and develop and become really happy, productive, amazing, wonderful adult brains. And so I was interested in the neuroscience of childhood and child development. And so that was like my focus of study. And I ran when I left Penn State, I ran a pediatric neuroscience lab at Penn State for a couple of years, working with the smartest people, like just absolutely brilliant people who I learned so much from. I was just inspired sponge mode for 3 years of my life, trying to keep up and ask good questions. And what I figured out was these people are amazing. They're incredible at what they do, but I don't think that they need my help. And I think the problem is not that we need to add more leaves to the tree of knowledge. I think what I need to do is figure out how to take all these things that we know about the brain, all these things we know about learning and development, and figure out how to turn it into really useful, really actionable, really easy to digest information and practice and habit and action in the early childhood like space. And that was really like my and I've been sort of like in that transition for a while, and I finally feel like I'm in a place where I'm able to deliver that, whether it's keynoting or training or coaching or whatever. But like that was the path. Like it started from this kind of love and interest, and it evolved into a mission basically.
Yeah. So that's a great example, I think, of taking what you have built up in your experiences and education and to use it in a way that helps other people. So good job for you recognizing that. You're welcome. So let's talk about building resilient teams. One of the human skills that you discuss is durability and resilience. Yeah. What are some of the? Are you so excited? I did my homework. What are some of the practical? What are some of the practical ways that childcare directors can help staff navigate challenges without burning out? Now, I know you mentioned breathing, but what other things would you say in terms of like maybe the environment or the way that you lead folks, or what's your best suggestions around that?
So I love that you used a human skill language called durability, which is great. And I feel like we keep talking about resilience. Like one of the things I feel like I've experienced in the last 2 or so years, I've been like going to conferences, absorbing, trying to figure out what the best practices are or like best trainings are, and like trying to be a student of the field and make sure that I'm contributing, in the best way that I can and with like the stuff that's the most useful. And one of the things that I feel like I've experienced a lot of is people talking about tips and tricks for burnout and how we're going to stop how we're going to solve the retention problem and like make educators more resilient. And like in my experience, and I want to be really clear about this. In my experience, I have seen hardworking, resourceful, strong, educated educators who are resilient, who are burning out. And the system around them is being like, hey, you know what you need? You need resilience training. And I was just looking at it and I'm like, man, I just don't think that's true. Like,
we need a candle.
What's that?
We need a candle and a bubble bath.
Yeah. Yes.
That'll fix it all.
But yes, one of the things that I'm noticing in like trainings and keynotes and stuff is the need for it to be fun. Like literally just the need for it to be rejuvenating with energy. And like it needs to have the information and the content there, and like we believe that that's true. We need that, like it's a requirement. But like right, like obviously, but like it also needs to be fun. Like that is a huge advantage for rejuvenating people. And so I feel like that's totally valid, right? Like the candle in the bubble bath is totally valid. And we can get into like recovery practices because that's like another part of this idea. But basically, what durability says is, I don't want to pay attention to the word resilience. It's kind of buzzwordy. It's kind of cloudy now. Like it's used so much that I don't. When you say a word so many times, you kind of like forget what it means. What I would rather talk about is strength and mobility, strength and mobility, strength and mobility, strength and mobility, which is durability. It's like if we are strong in our bodies and minds, we are less likely to get injured. If we are flexible in our bodies and minds, we are less likely to get injured. And so instead of being pushed through this system and being asked by the system to bounce back strong forever, which is unrealistic and unsustainable for anybody, what I would rather do is focus more on prevention, which would be like that strength and mobility, strength and mobility. So like, what does that mean? What does durability actually mean? One of the components of a human skill called durability is this idea of active recovery. And actually, I just released a video. We're recording this in June. Just released a video on this exact thing on my YouTube channel because I'm like trying to put this out into the universe in ways that make sense. But one of the things that we do is we have a big, huge, exhausting day, and we come home and we crash. And one of the things that I've learned from the ultra endurance community, so these are people who do ultra endurance marathons, like anything that's more than a marathon, 50 miles, 100-mile foot race, like huge physical endeavors. One of the tactics that they use for recovery is called active recovery, which is this idea that a small amount of energy expenditure actually gives you more benefit back, which is a really unintuitive thing to do if you're exhausted. You come home and you're beat from all the way. You said you wanted to make dinner. You said you wanted to go to the gym. You said you wanted to do these things, but like you're so wiped from this exhausting day of supporting people, managing your emotions, managing other people's emotions. Like, what do you do? And there's this sweet spot, especially for leaders who have usually pretty long worry lists, right? Like we have 800 million things. I'm sure that's true for you, Erica. Like you have 800 million things that you're doing all the time. You have a podcast. You've like 3 different locations. You have a conference. Like you have so much going on. And so if you're at all like me, what you may experience is like if you take a quiet break where like we airdrop Erica onto a beach and we handcuff you to a lawn chair and we set you up with a pina colada and you're sitting out staring into the abyss of the ocean, what you may find is that you what you may find is that this is actually really problematic because as soon as you create this open space vacuum where you have no tasks, no thinking, no like space to do anything, all of those 800 million things from your worry list drop right into your brain. And now we've taken away your number one ability to resolve those things and reduce that stress, which is for leaders and people of action, which is action, right? Like we've said, no, you need to stop. You need to take a break. You need to take a quiet time, right? And like now your quiet time is just filled with you worrying about something and not being able to take action on it. And so instead, we may choose to do something called active recovery, which is this idea that if we just spend our brain energy just a little bit on something that's distracting enough, so whatever your kind of like hobby or habit is, like knitting, going for a walk, riding a bike, doing a puzzle, like whatever that small thing is that just takes a little bit of your attention, just enough for it to sort of block some of those other things from jumping into your brain. Now you've created space to actually take a mental break from work. And just by doing that for 15 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is that you need to feel rejuvenated, you now actually get an opportunity to take a mental break, which is huge. And it's weird, right? It's like a slightly unintuitive thing to say, no, you should do something, even though you're exhausted, right? So it depends on your kind of like situation, but I would encourage people to try something like this. And this is just one component of the idea of durability, which is like, hey, if we have this unintuitive but useful habit of just taking breaks on things that call a little bit of our attention, but in the end give us an ROI, return on our investment of energy into that thing, we're able to come back a little bit stronger and pay more attention to the worry list with maybe even more creativity or energy behind it. So just a small example here to like kind of like get to your point. Hopefully I'm answering your question.
Yeah, it's all of it's good. It's all good. Let's talk about as we start to come to the half-hour mark here. Let's talk a little bit about the human skills in the AI world, right? You talk about preparing people for the future, where technology and AI continue to evolve. What human skills do you believe childcare professionals should be intentionally developing right now?
Yeah. You know what's a huge one? Probably number one on my list. and it relates to burnout and relates to durability, which is compassionate detachment. And this may be new language for some of you, because I don't know a ton of people who are defining it this way. A couple of researchers who are kind of like bringing this out to public eye, which is beautiful. I think most of us know what compassion is. It's basically this drive that, like, when we see somebody else suffering, we are motivated to help and problem solve. We are motivated to help resolve it. And the tricky trap that we fall into for most of us as compassionate, empathetic people is we can sometimes get someone else's burden into our own bodies. And we take on somebody else's work, challenge, like whatever adversity they have. We sometimes, by being feeling, caring people, we sometimes can take that on as our own problem and then try to tackle it from there, which of course is unproductive, because we need our energy to be able to support someone else. The classic example of this is the oxygen mask in the airplane, right? You always put on the oxygen mask to yourself first, right? Because if you pass out, you're useless, right? To like everyone else around you. And so the idea is the same. What compassionate detachment says is we are over here and we have our lives and our problems, and our job is to help support others. But instead of jumping into the pool and trying to save a flailing, panicked swimmer, which lifeguards are trained to know are dangerous, instead we are going to throw the life preserver into the pool and pull them out from solid ground. And this is like, I feel like a huge mental shift, because for educators who care, we can get burned out by caring and taking on other people's burdens. But what's a lot harder is to get burnt out by being compassionate and being a lifeguard from outside instead of taking on that burden. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually a really great analogy. And I dig it. I dig it a lot, because being, having as many staff as I do, they often come to me not only with work things, but outside of work things. Some of them, treat me like their counselor, their mom, which is fine. But you can only take on so much other stuff that isn't your stuff. Right. So, it can certainly lead you to burnout. I've been there. I've lived it. It's true. It's true stuff. Let's talk about motivation beyond a paycheck. Yeah. You discuss intrinsic motivation and sustaining drive beyond willpower. So, how can childcare directors inspire and motivate teams when resources are limited and challenges are high?
Yeah. It's so hard because there's so many variables inside like motivation. I think the failure or like the trap that we mostly fall into is that we use willpower for pretty much everything. And by willpower, I just mean forcing it. Like, hey, I'm in this level of my current motivation, and I am far away from this action that I know that I need to take, but I don't feel like it. I don't have the energy to get there, whatever. And so what we say is, I'll just force it. And I can just pull myself up, and I'm just going to charge ahead. And the problem about it is that it kind of works. And so that creates this like positive feedback loop, because you kind of worked hard and then it kind of worked. And so you're tempted to do it again. And then you want to use willpower. Like, you have this hammer and now everything looks like a nail. And so you want to use willpower for everything. And of course, like any other thing in the universe, you can't, bench press forever. It's just, you can't do it. You can do it for a little while and you'll be fine. But if you try to keep doing it without sleeping and without eating, like it's going to break. It doesn't matter how strong you are. Eventually that's what happens. And so we have this like weird little failure of willpower because it's not a muscle. And so we think if it's a mental thing that it doesn't work the same way. Like, how could I possibly get burnt out to that? And we sort of like get into this habitual trap. And what I would say is like there's a really great book. Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive. which I would recommend. It's part of kind of what I think of as the whole battery of what's included in all the variables of motivation. And in my trainings and coaching and stuff, I call these the 5 vital signs of motivation. And he talks about 3 of these components, and it's based on this research called self-determination theory. And if you're a nerd like me and you want to dive into that, like that's where you would start. You would go self-determination theory and hunt all that down. But basically, he breaks it down into 3 components that are based on this self-determination theory, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And autonomy just means, do I have the decision authority to make things happen? Am I in control of my own actions? The way that you would crush that in someone is bureaucracy, red tape, rules that don't make sense. I'll give you a great example. You have an educator on your team who comes in to work wearing something totally inappropriate for work for the kids you work with. What some directors will do is they will swing the policy hammer. And they will say, hey, I know what we need. We need a policy in our organization. This is, you can't wear this, you can't wear that. It's got to be this length and that length and this color, blah, 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 blah. Instead of the actual work, which is having a difficult conversation with that one person, because everyone else around you is fine and it's not a problem. And so we use policy and in order to solve the problem instead of the human skill of having a conversation, right? And so what ends up happening in many organizations experience this. When you come in, you swing the policy hammer, and then you swing it again, and you layer this on, you layer that, and then now all of a sudden you are layering your organization with policy and procedure and red tape. And we have a word for that. It's called bureaucracy, and no one wants to work in a bureaucracy because it's slow, it's hard, it makes no sense. There's old legacy rules that we don't care about anymore. It's a pain in the neck. And so it's just like this little trap that like I would just like beware. And it's just like a perfect example. You probably don't need a new policy and more complication and complexity in your organization. You probably just need to have a human conversation with one person. I had a friend and a mentor who used to say, don't punish the innocent. And I just love that, like, right? Because you're swinging the policy hammer, but you're also impacting all these other people who are fine, and that just builds, small resentment and breaks trust.
That is, Chris. I literally had this conversation with one of my directors last month when we were planning a staff meeting. She's like, "Oh, I want to have a staff meeting." I said, "Okay, that's great. Write down the agenda." I said, "Here's what we're not doing. We are not talking about cell phones. We are not talking about dress code. We're not talking about attendance. We're not talking about coming in late." And she looked at me. She said, "Well, some of those things need to be addressed." I said, "And you're right. But they need to be addressed with the people who it needs to be addressed to. Right. If I come to work on time, I wear my uniform and do all the things, and I have to sit through 20 minutes of that away from my family after hours, I'm going to be mad."
Right.
You have to stop doing that. Yeah. And so you're right. Most, I'm really talking to childcare directors because a lot of the meetings start with the laundry list of who didn't do what, who didn't clean what, who didn't wear what, who didn't do what. Bring those one-on-one conversations into the office. Do not subject the rest of your team to it. I totally agree. I will say guilty as charged. I did it for the first 20-something years of my career. Absolutely. You don't know any better because you do what you learn, and that's what you know, and that's what you learned, and that's what the folks did before you and the ones before that. Coming together as a group in a meeting should be about coming together as a group. What things are we going to celebrate? What things do we need from each other? Who's growing? Where are we stuck? It should be strategic. It shouldn't be reading policies to people who can read, who already know the policies. That's silly. That's for your onboarding, your orientation. When you're first laying out, these are the expectations. These are the standards. Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up. So I'm going to ask you this. What is one last piece of information that you would like to leave the listeners with? It can be anything you want.
Oh, it's so hard, Erica. I would say I think we talk a lot about resilience and motivation and willpower and all these like kind of businessy, like functional things. But one thing I feel like we're not talking about in 2026 is there's about 1 billion things that cost us energy and mental like sanity. And I feel like the number one thing we need to be thinking about on our teams is managing energy. And so whether it's reducing the friction of policy and like reducing layers of rules and whatever, and like making our team feel lighter because they don't have to go to 800 meetings about things that they don't care about. Like that's like an example, but I think thinking about every meeting, every conversation in like, is this a net positive energy interaction? Do they, and I don't mean like happy, like I don't mean, hey, go put on a toxic positivity fake face, like don't be fake. What I'm saying is, does your team walk away feeling more hopeful that the problem's going to be solved? Do they walk away feeling like we don't have an answer, but I feel like this team is a team that can solve it? Do they walk away feeling like that you're going to be collaborative? Like they're pointed in a positive direction. So don't conflate that with like, you know, oh, everything has to be pretend fun. Like don't do the forced fun thing. No one likes being voluntold on their day off to come in and do some silly thing. But like instead, think about it in terms of energy usage. And I think if we do that one thing, a lot of other stuff will start to make sense. It just would be a good diagnostic, I think.
Yeah. Wow. That is great advice. And I would also like to manage my own energy. So that's a good note to leave it on.
Erica. How could you, what are you talking about? What I know about you is you have unlimited energy. So I do have unlimited energy.
I want to keep my energy for the things I want to work on. So the things I don't. Where can people find you? Your social medias, your websites, all the things. Tell people where they can learn more about you, Chris.
The best place to get this stuff right now is chrisdanilo.com/newsletter. I'm in the process right now of putting out video content that walks through these exact things: compassionate detachment, durability, adaptive problem solving, curiosity, all of these things that are, I think, uniquely human. And I think that's like the central place. If you are curious about this or you want to learn more, it's chrisdanilo.com/newsletter.
Yeah, and to our conference planner friends that are listening, Chris would love to come out and keynote at your next conference. We'll put the link below. We'll put the link. You're gonna put it out in the universe. Link below in the show notes. Thank you, Chris. As always, look forward to talking to you again soon.
Erica, you're a force of nature. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Childcare Director's Chair, where we believe leaders aren't born, they're grown. If something sparked for you today, share it, shout it out, or pass it along to the next bold changemaker in childcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with Erica Sakosio for more real talk leadership tools and a whole lot of inspiration. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with fire, and always remember, the chair is yours. Now own it.